You ever wake up at 3 a.m. and suddenly your whole life feels like it's falling apart? Not because anything actually happened, but because your mind won't stop talking. It starts quietly. A small thought, something you forgot, something you said wrong. Then it builds. You are behind. You are not doing enough. People are moving faster than you. You are running out of time. And the scariest part? At 3 a.m., it all feels true. You try to go back to sleep. You turn. You check your phone. Maybe it's 3:12. Maybe 3:27. Your alarm is in less than 3 hours. And now your heart is beating like you're in danger. But there is no danger. Just thoughts. Still, they feel heavier than anything you deal with during the day. Most people think this means something is wrong with them, that they are weak, that they are losing control, that they need more motivation, more discipline, something. But here is the truth almost nobody tells you. Mentally strong people wake up at 3 a.m. too. They feel the same pressure, the same fear, the same voice. The difference is not what they feel. The difference is what they do next. And once you see this, you will never experience 3 a.m. the same way again. So let me ask you one thing. When your mind turns against you in the dark, are you fighting it or accidentally making it stronger? Because what you are about to learn is the one move most people never make before sunrise. Ethan was not the kind of man people worried about. 36 years old, married, no drama. He worked a steady 8-hour shift at a warehouse just outside Columbus. Nothing glamorous, but stable. Around $21 an hour, enough to cover rent, groceries, and a used Ford truck he had been paying off for the last 2 years. From the outside, his life looked fine, but what people could not see was how his days actually felt. He woke up tired, not the normal kind of tired, the kind that sits behind your eyes and never fully leaves. He moved through his shift on autopilot. Scan, lift, stack, repeat. 8 hours gone before he even realized it. And every night, he told himself the same thing. Tomorrow will be different. He would sleep earlier. He would wake up with energy. He would finally feel in control again. But then, 3 a.m. came, almost like a habit his body never agreed to. His eyes would open suddenly. No noise, no reason, just awake. At first, he tried to ignore it. Turn to the other side, pull the blanket tighter. But within seconds, the thoughts started lining up like they had been waiting. Bills he had not fully planned for. A small mistake at work earlier that week. A conversation with his wife that did not feel right. The quiet fear that he was doing everything, but going nowhere. And the worst part was not just the thoughts. It was how real they felt. At 3 a.m., there was no distraction, no noise, no movement, just him, and a version of his mind that sounded more convincing than it ever did during the day. So, he did what most people do. He stayed in bed and fought it. He argued with his own thoughts, tried to think positive, tried to force himself back to sleep. Sometimes it took 40 minutes, sometimes over an hour. And when the alarm rang at 6:30, he felt like he had already lost the day before it even started. But here is what Ethan did not realize yet. Those nights were not just making him tired. They were slowly changing how he showed up in his own life. And one more bad morning was about to make that impossible to ignore. At first, Ethan told himself it was just sleep, just a rough week, maybe 2. But then the small things started slipping. He snapped at a coworker over something minor, a labeling mistake that normally would not even bother him. The guy looked at him for a second, confused, then just walked away. That stayed with Ethan longer than it should have. Later that same day, he misread a shipment code. It was a simple task he had done hundreds of times. But this time, His focus drifted for just a moment, and it cost the team almost an hour to fix. His supervisor did not yell, which made it worse. He just said, "You good, man?" And Ethan did not know how to answer that, because the truth was, he was not. At home it showed up differently. Shorter patience, less present, more quiet in the wrong ways. One night, his wife asked him a simple question while he was staring at his phone. "Are you even here right now?" He looked up, but he did not have a real answer for that either. And that was the moment something shifted. Because now, it was not just about being tired. It was starting to affect how he worked, how he spoke, how he showed up for the people who mattered. And underneath all of that, there was a deeper fear growing. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. What if this keeps getting worse? Because in his world, one serious mistake at work did not mean embarrassment. It meant risk, lost hours, lost trust, maybe even losing the job that kept everything stable. And here is the part nobody expects. The problem was not just the lack of sleep. It was what those 3 a.m. thoughts were doing to him during the day. They were following him, quietly, changing his decisions, slowing his reactions, making everything feel heavier than it actually was. Ethan could still push through, for now, but the pressure was building, and sooner or later, something was going to force him to face it. The shift did not happen on a good night. It happened on one of the worst. 3-0 depan M. Ethan's eyes opened, and before he even moved, the pressure hit his chest. Not sharp, not sudden, just heavy, familiar, like something he had been carrying for weeks. The thoughts came faster this time. You are slipping. You are going to mess this up. You cannot keep this together much longer. Normally, this was where the routine started. Stay in bed, fight the thoughts, try to force sleep. But that night, something in him was too tired to repeat it again. Not tired, physically, tired of losing the same fight every night. So instead of turning over, he sat up. That alone felt strange. He looked at the clock. 3:11 a.m. Quiet house. No sound but the low hum of the fridge from the kitchen. And for the first time, he did something different. He got out of bed. No phone, no scrolling, no distraction. Just walked into the kitchen, turned on a dim light, and sat down. At first, nothing changed. The thoughts followed him. Same voice, same pressure. But now, he was not lying there absorbing it. He grabbed an old receipt from the counter and a pen, and without overthinking, he wrote down the first thought exactly as it came. You are falling behind. Then the next, you are going to mess this up. Then another. For about 5 minutes he just wrote. No fixing. No arguing. No trying to be positive. Just putting the thoughts somewhere outside his head. And something subtle started to shift. The thoughts did not disappear, but they felt weaker, less sharp, less absolute. Like they were just words, not facts. It was not a breakthrough. It was not some big realization. But for the first time in weeks, Ethan felt a small gap between him and his own mind. And that gap was enough to make him pause, because now a different question showed up. If this works even a little, what else have I been doing wrong this whole time? And that question was about to lead him to something much bigger. The next morning, Ethan mentioned it without thinking. Not to a therapist, not to a friend, just to Carl. Carl was in his late 50s, a quiet guy who had worked at the warehouse longer than anyone else. Before that, he had been a paramedic for almost 20 years, the kind of person who did not talk much. But when he did, people listened. Ethan kept it simple. I keep waking up at 3 a.m. Feels like my mind's working against me. Carl nodded, like he had heard that sentence 100 times before. Then he said something Ethan did not expect. 3 a.m. is not the problem. That's just when your brain is tired enough to stop filtering. The problem is, you're treating every thought like it's true. That hit harder than anything else, because it was exactly what Ethan had been doing. Carl grabbed a pen and wrote something on a piece of cardboard. Next time it happens, don't fight it. Run this. The 3 a.m. reset system. 6 steps. Sit up immediately. Do not stay in bed. Turn on a dim light. Change your state. Write every thought down. No editing. Label each thought, fact or fear. Pick one useful action for tomorrow. Breathe slow. 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out, 10 rounds. Carl tapped the list once. You don't win by calming your mind. You win by giving it structure. Ethan looked at the paper again. Simple, almost too simple. No motivation, no complicated routine, no fix your life speech. Just steps, real steps. And here's the part most people miss. This system was not designed to make the fear disappear. It was designed to stop Ethan from obeying it. Because once he could separate what felt real from what was actually real, he would not just survive 3 a.m. He would start taking control of it. And that was about to change what those nights meant entirely. The first night he followed the system, it felt awkward. Not hard, just unfamiliar. 3:14 a.m. He woke up again. Same tight chest, same thoughts starting to form. But this time, there was no hesitation. He sat up, walked to the kitchen, turned on the same dim light, sat down, and started writing. The thoughts came out fast. You're not doing enough. You're going to lose control. You're wasting time. He wrote them exactly as they sounded, then paused. Step 4. Fact or assumption. At first, he almost laughed, because most of them were not facts at all. They felt real, but they were guesses, predictions, fear, dressed up like certainty. That alone changed something. Not everything, but enough. By the third night, the process became smoother. He did not argue with the thoughts anymore. He just processed them. Some nights took 10 minutes, some nights closer to 20, but rarely more. And slowly, mornings started to feel different. Not perfect, but less heavy. At work, he caught himself before reacting. That same coworker made another small mistake. This time, Ethan paused. Not because he forced himself to be calm, but because his mind was not already overloaded. That small difference changed the whole interaction. At home, his wife noticed it before he did. You feel more here lately, she said one evening. He did not say anything back, but he knew what she meant. And here is the part most people get wrong. Progress did not mean the 3 a.m. wake-ups stopped. They did not. Some nights were still rough. One night, he almost stayed in bed and slipped back into the old pattern. Another night, he rushed through the checklist and felt no difference at all. Now this is where most people lose the fight. They expect the feeling to disappear. When it does not, they assume nothing is working, and they quit. But Ethan did something different. He kept showing up to the system, not because it felt good, but because it gave him something he did not have before. Control, not over his thoughts, but over what he did with them. And that distinction started to change everything. Because the real test of any system is not a quiet night. It is what happens when life gets louder. And that test was already on its way. The first night he followed the system, it felt awkward. Not hard, just unfamiliar. 3:14 a.m. He woke up again. Same tight chest. Same thoughts starting to form. But this time, there was no hesitation. He sat up, walked to the kitchen, turned on the same dim light, sat down, and started writing. The thoughts came out fast. You're not doing enough. You're going to lose control. You're wasting time. He wrote them exactly as they sounded, then paused. Step 4. Fact or assumption. At first, He almost laughed, because most of them were not facts at all. They felt real, but they were guesses, predictions, fear dressed up like certainty. That alone changed something. Not everything, but enough. By the third night, the process became smoother. He did not argue with the thoughts anymore. He just processed them. Some nights took 10 minutes, some nights closer to 20, but rarely more. And slowly, mornings started to feel different. Not perfect, but less heavy. At work, he caught himself before reacting. That same coworker made another small mistake. This time, Ethan paused, not because he forced himself to be calm, but because his mind was not already overloaded. That small difference changed the whole interaction. At home, his wife noticed it before he did. "You feel more here lately," she said one evening. He did not say anything back, but he knew what she meant. And here is the part most people get wrong. Progress did not mean the 3 a.m. wake-ups stopped. They did not. Some nights were still rough. One night, he almost stayed in bed and slipped back into the old pattern. Another night, he rushed through the checklist and felt no difference at all. Now this is where most people lose the fight. They expect the feeling to disappear. When it does not, they assume nothing is working, and they quit. But Ethan did something different. He kept showing up to the system, not because it felt good, but because it gave him something he did not have before. Control, not over his thoughts, but over what he did with them. And that distinction started to change everything. Because the real test of any system is not a quiet night. It is what happens when life gets louder. And that test was already on its way. The test did not come at a convenient time. It came all at once. Late Thursday night, around 10:40, Ethan received a call from his sister. Their mother had been taken to the hospital after a sudden drop in blood pressure. It was not life-threatening, but it was serious enough to require monitoring. At the same time, earlier that week, his supervisor had already mentioned that performance reviews were coming up. Ethan knew he had not been at his best lately. One more mistake could matter more than usual. By the time he got home from the hospital, it was already past midnight. He laid down, exhausted, but his body did not relax. 2 inches the morning, his eyes opened. And this time, the pressure came back stronger than before. The thoughts were louder, sharper, more convincing. What if her condition gets worse? What if you miss work and lose your position? What if everything starts falling apart at the same time? For a moment, he felt it. That old pull, stay in bed, overthink, spiral. His chest tightened. His breathing became shallow. Everything in him wanted to go back to the old habit. But then, something else showed up. Not motivation, not confidence, just memory. The system. He sat up slowly, walked to the kitchen, turned on the same dim light, sat down, and started writing. His hand moved faster this time. Every fear went onto the paper. Then he paused and looked at what he had written. Fact or assumption. He went through them one by one. Most of them were still assumptions. Heavy, emotional, but not proven. Then he stopped at one real problem. His mother was in the hospital. That was a fact. So he moved to the next step. One action. He wrote it clearly. Call the doctor at 8:30 and ask for full update. That was it. Not solve everything. Not control the outcome. Just one clear step. Something shifted again. Not the situation, but his state. His breathing slowed. The pressure did not disappear, but it no longer controlled him. He went back to bed. Not perfectly calm, but steady enough to rest. The next morning, he followed through. Made the call. Showed up to work. Handled the day. And for the first time, in a moment that used to break him, Ethan did not collapse under pressure. He responded to it. And that is when it became clear. Mental strength is not about avoiding hard moments. It is about knowing exactly what to do when they arrive.